if this is a party that fundamentally believes in something very different from what the majority of the Korean population wants, how are they so successful at getting elected?
Well, part of it, I will say, people do vote in ways that are perplexing sometimes, at least if you're not one of them. And the South Korean economy sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad. It's an economy where there doesn't seem to be a lot of opportunity for young people. In some cases, good jobs can be hard to find. The prospects of ever owning a house or even a condominium in Seoul or anywhere just out of reach. And those are things, the fundamental apparent unfairness in a society that lets a political party take advantage of that. So a lot of that is what is at play, or you're seeing it on display in South Korea. But at the same time, you do have what I would call electoral manipulation. And, hard as that is to believe, that I think in the sense that the National Assembly elections since 2020, and the presidential election in 2022, I think, have not been free and fair. I think they have been manipulated by the leftists, and probably with an assist from the People's Republic of China. And that's, it's one of these things that you have to see it to believe it. But before I get to that, do keep in mind that if you have the control of levers of power in South Korea, it can be very effective in getting your message across if you're a political party. And starting in the Moon Jae-in administration, which started in 2017, that the media really came to be under almost total control of the leftists. And as one former Trump administration official, a good one, in the first administration put it, Moon Jae-in took a stiletto to the press in South Korea. Things like libel lawsuits, tax audits, even the so-called conservative media in South Korea was neutered and brought to heel. And therefore, what you have is the leftist message gets out a lot better than does the conservative ones. And that really is the case. There is almost no real conservative media in South Korea. It's pretty much one-sided, and people who would say something else have been intimidated. You have YouTube, Facebook, Google, X. They've all been pressured by the government, and pretty successfully as well. So really where the conservative media, such as it is, exists in South Korea is largely with YouTubers. It's not the so-called mainstream or legacy media there. But so that has helped get your message across. But as I said, the evidence, as it looks to me, is that there has indeed been electoral fraud, manipulation in recent South Korean elections.
So what kind of specific fraud or election manipulation did you observe?
Well, first, just a little more background is I was actually asked in 2020 to go take a look into allegations of fraud in their 2020 April National Assembly election. And I had some time on my hands, so I was glad to go take a look. And I must say, I didn't think I would find anything. Because if you're my age, you remember seeing a picture of Harry Truman holding up a photo, like the newspaper, and the headline say in big print, Dewey wins. And that meant Thomas Dewey, his opposition. And Truman has a big smile on his face. And Truman, of course, won. So I was thinking, well, look, elections always have outcomes that you don't expect. It happens all the time. And that's just the nature of elections. So I thought that's what I would find. Or else that it would be maybe like going to a UFO convention where you have people with theories about things that are short on evidence. And you just, when you hear the theory and who's saying it, you kind of you recoil a little bit. But what it became apparent to me after talking to witnesses and examining evidence was that there was something there. These were as credible witnesses as you would ever find. The evidence was compelling. They had physical evidence, eyewitness testimony. You have scientific evidence. And if you put this all together and you suddenly realize that in all likelihood, there was a systematic effort to rig or manipulate the National Assembly election with the objective of getting an overwhelming majority for the Democratic Party of Korea candidates. And as just one anecdote that really does get your attention, one of the gentlemen I spoke with was the former president of what amounts to South Korea's MIT. It's KAIST, K-A-I-S-T. And he said, look, I looked at the statistical outcomes of this election, and particularly the early voting results. And he said, I looked at this trying to figure out some way to explain it. And he told me, well, either God did it or it was rigged. And that is something from a witness like that gets your attention. And so starting in 2020, I've actually kept an eye on things in Korea and looked at the 2022 presidential election, the 2024 National Assembly elections, and this most recent election. So it's not like I'm brand new to it. And the same evidence appears, the same things, we see the same things. Now, what sort of evidence is it? Well, it's sort of a mix of things. And one is the good old-fashioned counterfeit ballots, all marked for the same candidate. You have voting machines where there's video of it with they're counting, and you get over 3,000 straight votes for the same candidate, which is, of course, the leftist ones. You have pristine ballots. You have people counting the number of voters going into voting sites and comparing that to the announced number of voters, the number of votes cast, announced by the National Election Commission, and they don't match. There's 25%, 50%, even more of a difference. And you can just do the math. If to get the number of votes, for example, at some sites that the National Election Commission has announced, you would have to cast a vote at least every 4.2 seconds. This is Usain Bolt. This is Olympic 100 meter gold medalist sorts of speeds. And these things just don't make sense. And then there's the electronic part of it all. The National Election Commission's sort of network is really a server that connects to the voting sites. It's about that simple. And I think that a high school computer class could probably break it without a sweat, could crack it without breaking a sweat. And it's unbelievably easy to hack. And this was always raised as an issue. And the National Election Commission, of course, has refused to be at all transparent about what's in their machines, how it works, and just even the fundamental requirements under international law, international practice, and even Korean law. They just won't do it. And starting in 2020, you had evidence of Chinese Huawei components in the system, in the servers, in the counting machines, connected to the internet. And now that gets your attention as well. So these allegations about the electronic manipulation were out there, and the National Election Commission just said, no, our system is hack-proof. And when told about the Huawei problems and the Chinese connections, they said that is irrelevant. That was their answer. It was nothing else. Well, that seems to be the only place on earth where nobody thinks it's not relevant. But that was the response. And then finally, this, if you follow for a while, it gets more interesting, is despite these denials, in 2023, it was revealed that the North Korean Lazarus Group had successfully hacked the National Election Commission's network repeatedly over a period of months. And this gave an opening for the National Intelligence Service to take a look at this. And they went into the system, did a penetration test, and their report is grim reading. And a lot of it is you can find it on the internet. Basically, you can do anything you need to do to manipulate an election and its outcome. You can adjust the voter rolls, voting records, you can create new ballots. There's just nothing you can't do. The thing is wide open, and it has not been fixed. And this is one of the really compelling pieces of evidence, as I see it. And it's the one that the former head of the Korean MIT was talking about, was these early voting. It's the early voting, and in Korea there's 2 to 3 couple days before the actual election day when people can go vote. And this is where the results really get screwy, because since 2020, it has always been overwhelmingly for the Democratic Party candidates, for the leftist candidates, like 80-20, that kind of a split. It's everywhere. And it's uniform. It doesn't change. And you can see where the opportunities are to figure how many votes are we going to need? Well, we'll get them. And those votes are counted last. So they come in just coincidentally, and they routinely overturn conservative leads in districts. It happens all the time, and it was really bad in 2020. It hasn't gotten much better, and it's such that it's not even, there's no meticulousness to it. It's pretty brazen in it all, and this is what I think is probably going on. So it's a combination of good old-fashioned Chicago-style cheating and then some pretty sophisticated electronic manipulation.
Thank you for watching this clip. There's a lot more, so I invite you to visit our website, ChinaUncensored.tv, where you can watch the full hour-long interview, plus get MP3 downloads of our podcast. The link is below.